Pretty noisy for me, isn't it, this? This is New Basford in Nottingham. And I've come to have a look at a wall. I'm at a very different location this morning. I love stone walls like this because there's things to be found in walls. I'm in Nottingham, in particular I'm in New Basford, and I'm looking for a rather special and still rare in Nottinghamshire woodlouse. I'm looking for Armadillidium Depression. Yeah, there's a fancy name for you. And it is on this wall. It's a large woodlouse. Some individual specimens can get to an impressive size. Typically dark slate grey, and lives underneath loose mortar. Occasionally in the early morning hours after dawn, or the first few hours after dawn, you can find them still actively wandering on stone walls. There's 3 or 4 known sites in Nottinghamshire now, and all but one of them involve stone walls like this. And this is very much a species of urban and suburban sites. So anywhere with stone walls like this is always worth looking, and you've got to go underneath the mortar. And this is it. Well, this is 2 of them. This is Armadillidium Depression, 2 particularly well marked ones. Typically dark slate grey. Simply found by lifting up old loose mortar. And if this species is present, you'll soon find it. And there we've got 2 together. Now Dillis and I found this species new to Nottinghamshire in 2013 on a similar stone wall on Bath Lane in Mansfield, and at the time that record was considerably well north of any others in the UK. It is pretty much a southwesterly species, but is now, in these last few years, turning up further east and further north than its previous known range. But this is an impressive and attractive species. I thought these would be here. Now, as I mentioned before, you don't always have to climb trees to find leaf mines. You can always wait till the leaves drop off. And here's a species that's fast becoming something of an old friend. This is the leaf of a Norway maple, and there are 3 mines on here of Stigmella aceris. Now Stigmella aceris is a species I found new to Nottinghamshire a few weeks ago when I found mines at Retford Cemetery. I then proceeded to find mines in a Newark car park, in a South Nottinghamshire garden centre car park, and now here in New Basford in Nottingham. There must be a good population on this particular tree to have 3 examples on one mine. And if you look on the floor, there's another one there, and there's even one just down there. Not found it locally to where I live, around the Wasp and Mansfield area yet, but it has to be there. There are leaf mines everywhere on these trees, on these leaves. So there's a nice little species, and it's not the only leaf miner. There's old mines of another Norway maple leaf miner, and this is the mine of Untitled Chapter, which is another species commonly found on Norway maple. In fact, it's the only Untitled Chapter, I believe, that mines Norway maple. So check the leaves on the tree and on the floor. It's certainly very different to Sherwood. To say I used to live in Nottingham, after 30 years living at Market Warsop and spending so much time in the woods and forests locally, I feel a bit alien now coming back. It's not very often you get 2 species of Harmonia ladybirds in the same shot, but here we have 3 Harmonia axoides, the Harlequin ladybird, and this top one is the cream streak ladybird. Now this gravestone is immediately under a large pine, and that's purely why this species is here. So that's a nice little find, that. I'm quite pleased with that. So 3 Harlequin ladybirds and the slightly smaller cream streaked ladybird, which is more a ladybird of your pine forestry plantations, or it will turn up on isolated pines, as in this instance. Really, there's only another 2 or 3, but it is mild, so these species are all active. A very different scenic shot to the one you're accustomed to for those that watch these videos. I used to work up there on that skyline at one time. It's a nice little spot, this. I don't know how well it's kept during the spring and summer. By the looks of it, I think it probably only gets mowed once or twice. If it was left to go wild, even more than it is, it'd be a lovely little piece of inner city habitat. But it is still used for burials, I've noticed. So I dare say it'll stay in its present state for a number of years to come, but there's still plenty to find here. And it's the walls and the trees that would be the prime source of interest. And this nice bit of autumn colour still on these trees. getting to the stage where a gust of wind and they'll be off. And here's another Armadillidium Depression. I'm now on the northerly facing side of the wall, so this is the shaded side. But found this one just under a bit of loose mortar, and the good thing about Armadillidium Depression is that they tend to stay still. Saying that, this one's off now, look. And then this is the fourth individual I've found, and none have been the plain dark slate grey. All have had some markings along the back. And the broader at the front end is the one pointed down at a 5 o'clock angle. The tail end is the one at an 11 o'clock angle. And you can see how it tapers from head to tail. It's amazing how this species has obviously been in Nottinghamshire for many years and has been lurking on stone walls at several sites, and undoubtedly it's lurking on many more stone walls, and yet it's just been completely under-recorded and unrecorded because no one's had an interest in isopods until recent years, when Dillis and I became interested in them, and Tim Sexton also has done a bit of work on them when he was at Attenborough Nature Reserve. They're still under-recorded across Nottinghamshire. I do love ferns, and this one, growing out of virtually nothing but old mortar, is, I believe, called the maidenhair spleenwort. Whoever named it started off quite well, started off in quite a happy mood by the sound of it, maidenhair. Then I think she must have ditched him, so he called her a spleenwort. Strange, some of the names given to things, but whoever named it that obviously had the reason. And there's several examples of this plant growing out of the old mortar on this wall, but they can sustain extreme periods of dryness, but then benefit when it rains. Amazing things. And on this southern facing wall there's a large stand of ivy, and it's still flowering, surprisingly, with it being such a sheltered position. I thought it might have finished flowering long before now, but there's still an extraordinary number of wasps nectaring on it. Looking at them, they're all pretty end of season-ish and a bit sort of dozy and just going through the motions. It doesn't look as though they're collecting nectar to take back to the nest. But there's a lot of them, and there's a lot of males here as well. And presumably this is Vespula vulgaris, the common wasp. Although for wasp identification you really need to see the shape of the face, whether it's sort of rounded or quite long. to determine species, but not as easy as you might imagine. But it's nice to see these still going about their business, although rather than it being for the good of the colony, it's probably purely just selfish and a case of survival now for these. With this ivy being here, it's prime position for our familiar friend, the little green spider Nigma Walkenaria. And it's here. I've not actually seen one physically, but its characteristic webs are on some of the leaves, ain't it, that far in there. Saying that, there's one up here. There's quite a few flies here as well. The commonest is the familiar bluebottle, Calliphora vicina, and that'll probably be a species that features in the first video after Christmas and New Year, because it's a species, I know everyone detests it, but there's a reason I like it, because I like to see it during the winter months, when on the first mild day after the New Year, one will often turn up on a sheltered outside wall. They're never usually very far away. It's been quite a nice little visit. But it's time to make tracks, because I'm getting a little bit hungry.